"You don't belong here anymore, Dad. The house is ours now. And that mutt, he stinks just like you. Take him and get out before Christmas Eve." My son's voice cut through the kitchen louder than the hum of the fridge. His wife stood behind him, arms crossed, holding a shiny folder of papers. The smell of lemon cleaner mixed with the burnt toast still stuck in the toaster. On the counter, beside Rusty's empty bowl, lay the gifts I had wrapped with care. A cookbook for my daughter, warm sweaters for the grandkids, each one tied with ribbon. Nobody had even bothered to touch them. He slid the folder across the table, the plastic cover squeaking. Inside, color-coded tabs marked where my signature was supposed to go. "Just sign here. It's easier for everyone." Rusty lifted his head from the rug. 13 years old, gray muzzle, cloudy eyes. But he still understood the tone. His tail didn't wag. He just let out a low growl, the kind that vibrated more in his chest than in the air. My daughter-in-law smirked and tossed something onto the table. An old pair of sneakers, the ones my son used to mow the lawn years ago. "Here, a Christmas gift for you." They were headed for the trash, but why waste them? The room was quiet except for the ticking clock above the stove. I stared at the sneakers, then at the folder, then back at the two faces in front of me, people I had raised, fed, clothed, sheltered. And now they were throwing me out, like the dog-eared photos of my wife they had already packed away in a plastic storage bin. "If you don't sign, you don't eat with us. Christmas dinner is for family only," my son said, pointing at me like I was a stranger who had wandered in off the street. Family only, in my own kitchen. Rusty pressed his head against my leg. His fur smelled of old blankets and winter walks. The kind of smell you don't forget. I scratched behind his ear and felt the tremor in his body. I didn't shout. I didn't argue. I closed the folder slowly, slid it back across the table, and looked them in the eye. "You want me gone?" I said quietly. "Then watch carefully. Because I won't leave empty-handed. If anyone watching this has ever been told they're not wanted at their own table, hit subscribe, and in the comments, tell me your name and your city. I want to know who's still out there, listening, when the world tries to erase us." They thought they could bury me with papers and cheap gifts, but I already knew which documents would bury them deeper. The alarm clock isn't necessary. I wake up because Rusty nudges my elbow with his cold nose. 6:40 on a December morning, still dark. The kitchen glowing faint blue from the microwave display. The coffee maker clicks and gurgles like an old lighter. The air smells like cinnamon and damp dog fur, with a trace of rain, the porch boards still warm from the night's downpour. I set my mug on the counter and switch on the radio. Traffic on E5 is already backed up, a wreck near the bridge. On the windowsill lies the star, paper, not glass, edges stiff with old glue and glitter. Emily made it in 5th grade. Every year I take it out first, lay it somewhere visible so I don't forget. Out back, the extension cord from last winter still hangs like a sleeping snake. I used it to light the live spruce we planted. Mary and I called it our second child, the one that never left the yard. My phone buzzes, a message from Evan. "Dad, let me handle the bills. Send me your card. I'll put everything on autopay, okay?" Before I type back, another bubble. "Otherwise, late fees again." "You forget, Dad." I don't forget. I pay with paper slips, Fridays only, filed in the same tray since the 80s. I write, "I'll manage," and almost hit send. Then I erase it. I type, "Let's talk later." Rusty scratches the back door. I open it, and the smell of wet wood rushes in. The spruce is darker than the sky, branches heavy with rain, needles shining as if sprayed with polish. We planted it after our first Christmas in this house. Mary laughed when I cursed the crooked hole I'd dug. I still tie a branch each January with plastic tape so it won't break. Rusty raises his nose, breathes deep, as if he too remembers. Tom, the downstairs neighbor, shuffles out in a robe for his newspaper. "Morning," he says, glancing over the fence. "Smells like wet dog again." He smiles tight, almost pitying. Rusty turns his ears. "It's winter," I answer. "Everything smells wet." Tom shrugs and disappears, leaving damp footprints across the walk. A small thing, but it pinches under the ribs like a gulp of cold water. Later, I drive to Target for wrapping paper and batteries. The floor there hums under carts like an ice rink. A girl in a red shirt asks, "Need help finding anything?" "Clear lights, not warm," I say. She leads me to a shelf labeled Modern LED. No needles, no mess. I laugh under my breath. Modern things always talk like they're allergic to life itself. When I come back, a voice is already in the living room. Tara's, confident, not asking. "We should go with artificial this year," she says into the phone, then lowers her gaze to me. "Less mess." The smell triggers my migraines. On the table, she spreads a magazine. Glossy page, white plastic tree glowing like a mannequin. "We'll buy one at Costco, a big realistic one. Easier for everyone, Dad." "It isn't hard for me," I say. I like dragging the box out, cursing at the wires, untangling them. It's a ritual. Tara smiles like a dentist with a syringe. Rituals are sweet, but we have kids, allergies, a new carpet, no needles on the floor. And the dog should stay out of the living room. He smells. Rusty lies by the heater, watching her without blinking. I rub his neck. He's old. He doesn't jump on couches anymore. "I saw the fur," she says flat. "And Evan told me you missed another due date. Bank called." It's stressful before the holidays. A laugh from the hallway. Evan steps in with a giant Costco box of cookies, still warm through the plastic. "Dad, look what we got. Kids will love it." He kisses Tora's temple, drops the box onto the coffee table without asking. His sleeve brushes the star on the sill. Paper flutters to the floor. "Careful," I say. He picks it up between two fingers, like an old receipt, pins it under a Trailblazers magnet on the fridge. "By the way, about bills," he adds like it's weather. "It's easier if I pay them all at once. Give me your card later. I'll set up Apple Pay." "It's not up for discussion, Dad. We want to help." I say nothing. I look at his sneakers, white, spotless. He buys himself the good things. I mentally note the brand, the size. It might help with his Christmas gift. The thought makes me smile, and the smile tastes bitter. That evening, Rusty and I walk the block. Neighbor houses glow with plastic deer, blinking strings breathing on and off. My yard stays dark, the spruce a proud black shadow. I drag out the spool of cord and drop it on the steps. From the kitchen window, I see Tara rearranging frames. She moves Mary's photo into a corner, replaces it with a candle labeled Winter Vanilla. The house smells like sweet wax and disinfectant. Close to midnight, with Rusty snoring and the block silent, I take out a notebook. I write in thick letters: spruce, Thursday, lights, tomorrow, gifts, wrap. Then smaller. Beneath, don't give card, speak calmly. I set the star on top of the page to remind me. The phone buzzes once more. Tour at Golden Oaks Thursday at 3 p.m. We booked it, just to see, nothing serious. Tara's message glows white in the dark. I reread the words just to see. Rusty groans in his sleep, paw against the table leg. The star trembles, but doesn't fall. I switch off the lamp and lie there, listening to the fridge breathe and the rain return, as if the house itself is trying to hold on until Christmas with me. The HOA meeting smelled like bleach and Costco cookies. They always used the community room in the condo basement, fluorescent lights buzzing, plastic chairs squeaking, a table stacked with paper cups and lukewarm coffee. I sat near the back with Rusty under my chair. He groaned once, stretched, then curled into a ball. Tom, the neighbor in the robe, was already talking. "We've had some concerns about the gate being left open. Not pointing fingers, but some people forget." He glanced my way, smiling like he wasn't smiling. A few chuckles floated around the table. Tara raised her hand. "And maybe we should discuss outdoor decorations? Some yards look outdated." She didn't say my name, but everyone turned their heads a little too obviously. The plastic deer across the street, the new LED setups, they all gleamed perfect in phone photos. My spruce stood dark, needles heavy with rain. Someone muttered, "That tree's older than the building," and laughter rippled again. I reached down and touched Rusty's ear. His fur was warm, his breathing steady. I wanted to leave, but I stayed until the end, because leaving would look like agreement. Back home, the smell of vanilla hit me again. Tara had lit 3 new candles, one on the mantel, one on the dining table, one in the hallway. She was on speakerphone, her voice bouncing around the house. "Yes, Golden Oaks. Thursday is perfect. We'll bring Dad for a tour." Rusty shook himself, tags jingling. "Keep him out of the living room," Tara snapped suddenly, covering the phone mic. "He smells." Guests will notice Rusty stopped, ears flat, and walked back toward me. Evan came in from the garage carrying a cardboard box. He dropped it on the kitchen counter. Old shoes, magazines, a half-broken blender. Sorting out the junk. Might as well clean before Christmas. He dug out a pair of my sneakers, scuffed, sole peeling. "Dad, You don't wear these, right? He laughed. Maybe we'll wrap them up as a gift. Tara giggled in the background. I set down the mug I was holding, careful not to spill. You think that's funny? My voice came out lower than I expected. It's a joke, Dad. Lighten up, Evan tossed the sneakers back into the box. Anyway, Thursday's important. Don't make it difficult. I stared at the box, at my things piled like trash. The blender Mary used for her morning smoothies, the magazines with her handwriting in the margins. Rusty nosed the edge of the box, whining softly. I took the sneakers out, brushed dust from them, and set them by the door. They're still mine, I said. Evan sighed, pulled out his phone, and scrolled like the conversation was over. Tara's voice echoed from the living room. It'll be easier for everyone. Trust me. The house smelled of vanilla and something burning. One of her candles had melted unevenly, smoke curling toward the ceiling. I opened a window, let the December air rush in, cold, damp, real. Rusty put his head on my knee, and I whispered, "We'll get through this, boy." Behind me, Evan muttered just loud enough, "If he doesn't sign, Christmas dinner is for us only. No extra seats. No extra seats for me in my own house." The next morning, the house smelled of reheated coffee and wet dog. I was wrapping gifts at the kitchen table, real ones, things I'd chosen carefully. A cookbook Emily once admired, sweaters for the grandkids, a new set of headphones Evan mentioned months ago. Each box I wrapped slow, pulling the paper tight, smoothing the tape. Rusty sat under the table, tail thumping against the leg every so often. His breathing filled the silence. Outside, rain tapped the window, steady and soft. The front door swung open. Evan came in, carrying a tall box stamped artificial pine, 9 feet pre-lit. Tara followed with a bag from Costco, tags still dangling from the handles. "Dad," Evan said too brightly, "this is going to be so much easier. No needles, no water, no smell." He leaned the box against the wall like it already belonged there. I didn't answer. I kept folding paper around a small sweater, pressing the tape down until it stuck to my fingertip. Rusty padded over to the box, sniffed once, then sneezed. Tara wrinkled her nose. "Exactly. Even the dog knows your old tree stinks. We'll put this one up tonight." I looked at the gifts lined across the table, red and green paper glowing under the overhead light. "What about the spruce outside?" I asked. Evan shrugged. "We're listing it. Someone will want it. Vintage, right? Craigslist pickup, saves space." The tape roll fell from my hand, clattering across the floor. Rusty chased it halfway, then stopped, confused. "You're selling the tree?" My voice cracked louder than I planned. "It's just a tree, Dad," Evan said, half laughing. "We need room for the kids' trampoline next spring. Don't make it a big deal. It's not just a tree." I pushed the half-wrapped box aside. "We planted it with Mary. Every year," Tara cut me off. "Every year it sheds needles, blocks light, and makes the yard look like a swamp. It's time for something clean." She reached for one of my wrapped boxes, tapped it with a manicured finger. "Besides, gifts don't have to be sentimental. Sometimes practical is better." Evan picked up Rusty's blanket from the couch, dropped it into the laundry basket. "This smells too. We'll wash it or throw it out." Rusty whined, head low, eyes flicking from me to the basket. I pulled the blanket back, folded it over my arm. "He stays. The tree stays. Both of them." Evan sighed the way he used to when he was 16 and grounded. "Dad, don't make everything so dramatic. We're trying to make life easier. Thursday we'll look at golden oaks, get some ideas, no pressure, just a tour." Rusty climbed onto my foot, heavy and warm. I rested my hand on his back. "No pressure," I repeated softly. But in my chest something twisted, like the smell of smoke that never leaves your jacket. Evan leaned against the fridge, crossing his arms. "Anyway, don't worry about dinner. We'll handle everything this year. You can sit this one out. Sit this one out. Christmas, my own table." I folded Rusty's blanket tighter, looked at the taped-up boxes of gifts no one wanted, and thought, they were already writing me out, and they weren't even hiding it anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house was too quiet, except for the hum of the fridge and Rusty's steady breathing at the foot of my bed. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Evan's smirk, Tara's voice echoing, "Sit this one out." By morning, the smell of bacon drifted up the hallway. I came to the kitchen, expecting plates on the counter, coffee poured like old times. Instead, Tara and Evan were sitting at the table with their laptops open, papers spread out. No food for me. just the scorched scent of something scraped from a pan. Rusty patted in behind me, tail wagging. Tara wrinkled her nose immediately. He needs to stay outside. It's embarrassing when people visit. No one's here, I said. She means Christmas, Evan added without looking up. We'll have guests, kids, family friends. The smell, Dad. People notice. Rusty whined, pressed his head against my leg. I scratched behind his ear. His fur carried the damp of last night's rain, earthy and familiar. Tara closed her laptop and slid a sheet across the table. Power of attorney draft, just a precaution. If something happens, bills, house decisions, it's easier. I looked at the bold letters across the top. The paper smelled of fresh toner. You already printed this? It's for your good, Evan said calmly. Less stress. We'll take care of things. You just relax. On the counter sat the artificial tree box, unopened, leaning like a warning. Beside it, my wrapped gifts stacked neatly, untouched, like props no one cared to use. Rusty sniffed the paper, then sneezed. Tara pulled it back sharply. See? Even the dog knows it stinks in here. I sat down slowly, the chair creaking under me. You're throwing out my tree, pushing me out of dinner, handing me old shoes as presents, and now you want me to sign my house away? Evan finally looked up, eyes hard. Stop exaggerating. You'll still live here, for now. But you have to think ahead. You don't get to decide everything anymore. The words hit heavier than I expected. Not shouted, not cruel on the surface, just matter of fact, like a verdict. Rusty growled low, his head resting on my foot. I let my hand find the rough fur on his back. My pulse slowed. I looked at the star on the fridge, trapped under the magnet. Its glitter had dulled, edges curling. But it was still there, still mine. I pushed the papers back across the table. My voice came out quiet, steady. I'm not signing. Not now. Not ever. Tara leaned back, crossed her arms. Then you'll have no place at our Christmas table. For the first time in years, I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, but because they thought a table could erase me. Rusty thumped his tail once against the floor, as if he understood. The knock came just after lunch, sharp and official, not like neighbors or delivery drivers. Rusty barked once, then went quiet, pressing himself against my leg as I opened the door. 2 people stood there, one man in a suit too thin for Oregon rain, holding a leather folder, and a woman in a gray jacket with a laminated badge that read, Golden Oaks Senior Living, Coordinator. Behind them, Evan leaned against the porch post, phone in hand, like he was hosting a meeting. Dad, these are just professionals to help us prepare, he said smoothly. The man with the folder stepped inside without waiting. The scent of lemon polish clung to him, mixed with damp wool from his coat. He spread papers across the kitchen table, sliding a pen toward me with a practiced smile. Mr. Whitman, these are standard authorizations. Very simple. It gives your son the ability to manage the property in case of emergencies. I stared at the bold print, durable power of attorney. My name in neat letters, underlined spaces waiting for my signature. The coordinator set down a glossy brochure, photos of spotless hallways, fake smiles under wreaths. Golden Oaks has a wonderful Christmas program, she chirped. Choir visits, crafts, safe dining. We think you'd be comfortable there. Rusty growled low, not at her, but at the way she set the brochure on top of my wrapped gifts, crushing the bows. Evan scoffed. Dad, don't make it weird. Just sign. Then we can all enjoy Christmas without stress. I pushed the pen back across the table. I didn't ask for this. The suited man's smile didn't falter. He opened his folder wider, revealing a page marked with a bright yellow tab. All you need is here. Initial, sign, date. It's routine. The glass of water Tara had set on the counter earlier was still there, just out of reach. My throat was dry, but I didn't move. The coordinator glanced at Rusty, nose wrinkling. Animals aren't permitted at Golden Oaks, of course. We'd help with placement. Rusty barked once, sharp, then settled his head on my foot. His body trembled. Evan exhaled loudly, like a parent scolding a stubborn child. Dad, please, don't embarrass us. These people are here on their own time. From the doorway, Tom, my neighbor, peeked in. He must have been returning from his mailbox. Everything all right? He asked, eyes flicking from the papers to my face. Just family business, Evan answered quickly, forcing a smile. Dad's signing some things. Tom nodded slowly, but didn't leave right away. He looked at me, really looked, and I could see he recognized something wasn't right. The pen rested between us. The folder waited. The brochure lay on my gifts. And Rusty, old as he was, pressed closer, as if to remind me I wasn't alone. "I'm not signing today," I said finally, voice steady. The coordinator blinked, her professional smile flickering. Evan's jaw tightened. The man in the suit tapped the papers once, like a judge's gavel. "Then we'll reschedule," he said politely. But the way Evan looked at me, I knew it wasn't over. It was only beginning. 2 days later, Evan insisted we run a quick errand. He drove, silent, his jaw tight. Rusty whined when I left, scratching the door, but Evan shut it before I could turn back. We pulled into the Chase branch on Powell Boulevard. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the air thick with toner and holiday cinnamon from a plug-in freshener. A line of people waited, winter coats dripping on the tile. "Just a formality, Dad," Evan muttered. He handed me a folded slip of paper. "Bank needs your confirmation." At the counter, a young teller with bright red nails scanned the document. Her eyes darted to the screen, then back at me. "Sir, this authorizes a joint transfer," she said carefully. "Are you aware?" Evan leaned in, his smile rehearsed. "Yes, he's aware. He gets confused sometimes, but we're handling it." Heat climbed my neck. The people in line shifted, listening. A man coughed into his scarf. A woman whispered something to her kid. "I'm not confused," I said, louder than I meant, "and I'm not authorizing anything." The teller hesitated, nails clicking against the keyboard. "If you're uncomfortable, we don't have to process this today." Evan's smile cracked. "Dad, stop making a scene." Behind me, someone in line said, "Let the man speak." My shoulders straightened. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel entirely invisible. I pulled my checkbook from my coat pocket, flipped it open with stiff fingers. "I came to deposit, not to hand over my life." My voice shook but held. I scribbled my name across the slip, signed for the deposit, and slid it under the glass. The teller stamped it quickly. Accepted. The sound was louder than it should have been, a gavel in a crowded room. Evan grabbed the papers, his jaw hard enough to crack. "Fine. We'll do this another way." As we walked out, the cold air hit like a slap. My hands trembled, but inside, something steadied. I still had my signature. I still had my word. And I knew now, they weren't just planning Christmas without me. They were planning life without me. But I wasn't going anywhere. Not yet. The first night after the bank, the house felt heavier than ever. I sat at the kitchen table with a cold mug of coffee, the surface filmed over from sitting too long. The only sound was the clock above the stove. Tick, tick, louder than it had ever been. Rusty lay by the door, his breathing uneven, paws twitching in sleep. I dialed Emily's number. It rang 4 times, then voicemail. "Hi, this is Emily." Leave a message. I hung up without speaking. I tried again an hour later. Same. On the counter lay a stack of envelopes, electric, gas, HOA notices. I flipped through them slowly. One already stamped "late fee applied." My hands trembled. I wasn't sure if from age or anger. Rusty woke, patted to my side, and rested his chin on my thigh. His fur smelled faintly of rain and dust. I scratched his ears, grateful for the warmth. "At least you still answer," I whispered. The next morning I walked to the diner on 82nd. Vinyl booths sticky from syrup, the smell of burned bacon fat clinging to the air. A Channel 7 newscast droned from the wall-mounted TV. "Holiday special at Golden Oaks Senior Living this weekend." The irony tasted like rust in my mouth. The waitress, same one I'd known for years, poured my coffee without meeting my eyes. When she slid the bill across early, she murmured, "Your son said he'd cover you. It's already on his card." I froze. I didn't ask him to. She shrugged, uncomfortable, then moved on. People in the next booth glanced my way, whispering. My face burned. I left cash on the table anyway, crumpled bills from my pocket, and walked out before finishing my eggs. On the way home, I checked the mailbox. Inside, a glossy pamphlet stared back. Golden Oaks, a better holiday for seniors. My name printed neatly on the label. They'd signed me up for mailing lists already. Rusty barked once when I dropped it in the trash. The sound echoed down the empty street. For the first time, I felt the house wasn't mine anymore. It was staging, a set for someone else's play. That night I wrote in my notebook, the letters thick and uneven. They want me out. They want him in. Then, below, smaller. If I keep asking, I'll lose more. Stop asking. I closed the book. Rusty shifted closer, pressing his body against my leg. His loyalty made the silence sharper. The house was too big for just us, and yet it was all we had left. The next day the pharmacy called, or at least I thought they did. When I answered, the voice on the line was clipped, businesslike. "Mr. Whitman, just confirming your refill was already picked up." I blinked. "Picked up? By who?" "Your son. Yesterday afternoon. Said he was helping manage your prescriptions. It's logged in the system." My chest tightened. That was my refill. I didn't authorize anyone. "I understand, sir," the voice replied, polite but distant. "But the pickup is complete. You'll need to wait until next cycle." The line clicked dead. Rusty nosed my hand, sensing the heat rising in me. I dropped into the chair, staring at the empty countertop. Even the small act of collecting my own pills had been taken away. By evening, I tried calling an old friend from work, Gary, the one who used to share the night shifts with me years back. The call went to voicemail. When I finally reached him the next day, his tone was rushed. "Hey, I'm swamped. Can't really get into it right now. But I heard your kids are moving you into Golden Oaks. That's probably for the best, right? Safer for you." He didn't wait for my answer. He hung up. I sat there, phone in my palm, Rusty's tail thumping softly on the floor. The betrayal wasn't loud. It was quiet, passive, like doors closing one by one until you're left in a hallway with no exits. Later, out walking Rusty, I passed Tom again. He was with another neighbor, both carrying shopping bags. When I waved, they averted their eyes, muttered something about family business under their breath. Rusty growled low. I almost envied him for not needing words. Back inside, the kitchen smelled of candle wax again, Tara's doing. She'd been by, I realized, because one of Mary's framed photos was gone from the wall. In its place, a generic holiday print, glitter snow, and faceless reindeer. I dug through the trash and found the frame wedged under coffee grounds and food wrappers. My hands shook as I cleaned it, the glass smeared but intact. I set it back on the mantel, right next to Rusty's worn collar from his puppy days. That night, as the rain hammered against the roof, I opened my notebook again. This time, I didn't write in thick letters. I wrote carefully, small, deliberate. Enough, no more asking, no more waiting. Rusty pressed his head against my knee. His body was warm, steady, alive. I whispered into the empty kitchen, louder than the ticking clock. "They've taken everything but this house, this dog, and my name. And I won't let them take those." The words didn't feel like hope. They felt like the bottom, solid, cold, unyielding. The place you finally push against when you're done sinking. The idea came slowly, not like a spark, but like a bruise that kept throbbing until I had to touch it. They were pushing me out of my own life. If I didn't push back, soon I'd be gone entirely, forgotten, erased, replaced by brochures and auto-pay accounts. I started small. That morning, I walked Rusty past the Chase branch and ducked inside, ignoring the way the teller's eyes flickered in recognition. I asked for a printout of my recent logins. The woman hesitated, glanced at my ID, then handed me a stapled packet. Device IDs, times, locations. One line stood out, an iPhone login at 2:17 p.m. I was home then. Evan wasn't. I folded the packet into my coat pocket. Rusty wagged his tail like we'd just stolen fire. Back at the house, I dug through the trash where Tara had tossed one of Mary's old recipe binders days earlier. Grease stains on the cover, pages smelling of cinnamon and coffee grounds. Inside, between two loose sheets, I found a receipt, dated last week, for Christmas tree pickup Craigslist. My spruce listed for $40. 40. Rusty sneezed when I held it up, the paper fluttering in my hand. $40 for 30 years of memories. I pressed the receipt flat in my notebook, taped it down, my first evidence. That night, I tested the recorder on my old camcorder. The lens was cracked, battery weak, but the mic still caught everything. I left it running while Evan and Tara argued in the kitchen. "He needs to just sign, Tara. It's paperwork. The bank's ready. Golden Oaks has a room." "And the dog?" she asked. "Gone," he said flatly. "Smells up the place. We'll tell him it's policy." I clicked the recorder off, heart pounding. Rusty licked my hand, confused by my shaking. I wrote in the notebook, evidence, 1, bank logs, 2, receipt, 3rd recording. Not much, but enough to know I wasn't imagining things. They were planning my erasure step by step, and step by step, I would collect theirs. The law office was hidden in a strip mall between a nail salon and a pawn shop. The window blinds were half tilted, the kind that never sit straight, letting in a thin line of winter sun. Rusty waited in the car, fogging the glass with his breath, while I pushed the heavy glass door open. Inside smelled of cinnamon air freshener and disinfectant. A woman at the desk barely looked up. Appointment? I slid the paper forward. An email confirmation I'd printed at the library. She nodded, waved me toward the back. The lawyer was younger than I expected, maybe mid-40s, dark suit, no tie. His nameplate read Martin D. Harris, Elder Law. He motioned me into a cracked leather chair that sighed when I sat. "So," he said, folding his hands, "you believe your family is attempting to exert control over your assets without your consent." I pulled the Chase printouts from my coat, the receipt from the recipe binder, the camcorder with the faint red scratch across its lens. He skimmed the papers first, brows tightening. "This login isn't yours?" "I don't own an iPhone," I said. He tapped his pen against the margin. "That matters." "And the receipt? Tree sale in your name?" I nodded. "My tree. My wife and I planted it. They listed it like it was garbage." He leaned back, sighed. "Not unusual. But together, with audio..." He lifted the camcorder gently, pressed play. Evan's voice filled the small office. "He needs to just sign, Tara. It's paperwork. The bank's ready. Golden Oaks has a room. And the dog? Gone." The lawyer stopped the tape, looked me dead in the eye. "That's coercion. And you're still competent, clearly. We can draft an affidavit of capacity. You sign it before a notary, it locks in your decision-making power. We'll also file a preliminary revocation of any attempted power of attorney." The words rolled over me, half understood, but the tone mattered more. Steady, confident, protective. For the first time in months, someone wasn't talking through me, but to me. Martin scribbled on a yellow pad. "First step, protect your accounts. I'll prepare letters to Chase and the utilities. They'll freeze third-party access until clarified. Second, copies. FedEx them to me. Never hand originals to anyone." He pushed the pad closer. "Can you handle that?" I thought of Rusty waiting outside, fogging the window with his breath, patient as always. I nodded. Martin smiled faintly. "Good. Then you're not as alone as they want you to believe." When I left, the December air bit hard, but it felt cleaner. Rusty barked once, tail beating against the seat. I scratched his head, slipped the pad of notes into my coat. Evidence, allies, steps. For the first time, the hallway I'd been trapped in didn't look like a dead end. It looked like a door I could still kick open. I waited until Evan and Tara left for errands before pulling the old box from the closet. Inside were tax returns, insurance letters, faded photographs of Mary clipped into envelopes. My hands shook as I chose what mattered most. Property deeds, bank letters, even a faded warranty for the house's roof. All things they could twist if they had the chance. Rusty followed me from room to room, nails clicking on the hardwood. When I knelt by the table to organize papers, he laid his head on my knee as if guarding them. I slid the documents into a heavy manila envelope, sealed it with tape, then tucked it inside a grocery bag. "Walk time," I told Rusty. His ears perked. We headed to the FedEx office near 39th. The air inside buzzed with printers, smelled of toner and cardboard. The clerk, a college kid with headphones dangling around his neck, weighed the envelope. "Delivery overnight? Signature required?" "Yes," I said firmly. My voice surprised even me. While he printed the label, I glanced through the glass wall. A reflection caught. Evan's car, or one just like it, parked across the street. My stomach tightened. Rusty barked once, loud enough that people turned. I signed the receipt quickly, grabbed my copy, and walked fast to the exit. The car across the street pulled away slowly. Too slowly. That night, back home, I set the camcorder on the counter, red light blinking faint. I didn't mean to leave it visible, but Evan noticed. "What's this?" he asked, picking it up. "Old family video," I lied, my heart pounding. "I was checking if it still works." He pressed a button, frowned when it clicked without playing. "You should throw this junk out." Rusty growled from the doorway, low and steady. Evan set the camcorder down hard, muttering under his breath as he walked off. As soon as the house quieted, I replayed the tape. His voice again, sharp, unmistakable. "He needs to sign. Golden Oaks has a room. The dog? Gone." I copied it onto a USB stick, slipped it into my pocket. Then I hid the camcorder in Rusty's old toy box under a pile of chewed ropes and tennis balls. When I crawled into bed, rain beating against the windows, Rusty curled tight against my side. I whispered, "Almost lost it today, boy." But not yet. Not yet. On the nightstand lay Martin's yellow pad, my list of steps. One more line written at the bottom in my own hand. Don't let them see fear. Fear is permission. The next morning, Evan was already in the kitchen, laptop open, his voice sharp on a call. I caught the words bank access and authorization. He closed the screen the second I walked in. "Dad," he said, too casual, "Chase is updating their systems. I'll need your login to make sure bills don't pile up." I poured coffee, ignoring the way his eyes followed me. "Already handled." His jaw twitched. "Handled how?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A voicemail from Martin. I stepped outside into the cold December air, Rusty trotting after me. The message was calm, measured. "Mr. Whitman, Chase confirmed they've locked the third-party access. Only you can authorize changes now. Your affidavit of capacity is ready for notarization. Call me when you're ready to sign." I replayed it twice, the words like a lifeline. "Only you." When I came back inside, Evan's smile was stretched too thin. "Who was that?" "An old friend," I said, slipping the phone into my pocket. That afternoon, I walked to the library to use their scanner. Rusty waited tied by the door, whining softly as I fed pages through the machine, copies of deeds, receipts, even Mary's handwritten grocery lists tucked into bills. I saved everything to a USB, then mailed another envelope to Martin. On the way out, I spotted Tara's SUV rolling slowly past, her eyes flicking toward me before she turned the corner. My stomach knotted, but I kept walking, Rusty pressed close to my side. That night, Evan confronted me again. "Dad, you've been acting paranoid, sneaking around." "What are you hiding?" Rusty barked, startling him. I stroked the old dog's back. "If I were hiding something, you wouldn't know." For the first time, Evan didn't have a quick comeback. He stared, then stormed down the hall, muttering. I sat at the table, sliding the USB into my pocket, feeling its small weight like armor. Martin's words echoed, "You're not as alone as they want you to believe." Rusty curled at my feet, tail thumping once. For the first time in weeks, I let myself breathe slower. It wasn't victory, not yet, but it was a foothold, a brick in the wall that was finally mine again. It started with a knock at the door that wasn't mine. Rusty barked, tail stiff, as two strangers stepped onto the porch. One wore a county badge clipped to his jacket, Adult Protective Services. The other carried a clipboard. "Mr. Whitman, we've received a report of self-neglect. We'd like to take a look around." Behind them, Evan's car idled at the curb. He didn't bother hiding. He waved casually, phone in hand, like he'd just been passing by. Rusty growled deep in his chest. "I didn't request this," I said, holding the doorframe tight. The man with the badge smiled politely, but his eyes scanned past me. "Sir, just a routine wellness check. Quick walkthrough." Inside, the smell of candle wax still lingered from Tara's visits. My wrapped gifts sat untouched on the counter, their bows sagging. To any outsider, the house looked staged, not lived in. They asked questions. Was I eating regularly? Did I manage my medications? Where were the pill bottles? I opened the cabinet, empty, because Evan had picked up my refill without telling me. The clipboard woman scribbled. The sound of her pen against the paper was louder than Rusty's bark. "Look," I said, my voice rough. "My son filed this, didn't he?" Neither answered, but when they left, Evan's smile widened as he backed his car down the street. That night, the phone rang. The bank again. Someone had tried to link a joint account under my name. They froze my online access until I confirmed. I slammed the receiver down, chest heaving. Rusty whined, resting his head against my leg. The walls felt closer, the house smaller. Every light flickered like it might burn out. I sat at the kitchen table, pen in hand, and wrote in my notebook, "They're tightening the rope. Faster, louder. But I will not choke." Rusty pressed closer, his fur damp from the night air. I scratched behind his ears, whispering, "They think they've cornered us, boy. Let them. The tighter they push, the harder they'll fall." And for the first time, I believed it. 2 days later, I thought I'd ruined everything. I'd gone to the UPS store on Hawthorne to send another packet of copies to Martin. The air inside reeked of ink and cardboard dust, boxes stacked to the ceiling. Rusty waited outside, leash looped around the bike rack, whining as I filled out the form. When I reached into my coat for the envelope, my stomach dropped. The inside pocket was empty. No USB, no notarized draft, nothing. My fingers clawed through every fold of fabric, every pocket, but the envelope was gone. I stumbled outside, heart pounding. Rusty barked, startled by my panic. A man in a gray hoodie leaned against the wall across the street, watching me too long before walking off. I pulled Rusty's leash free and hurried home, scanning the sidewalks like I'd dropped a piece of myself. My throat was dry, my hands trembling on the leash. Back in the driveway, Evan's car was there. The passenger window rolled down just long enough for him to smirk before pulling away. My gut twisted. Inside the house, I tore through drawers, bags, under couch cushions. Nothing. My plan was slipping like water through my hands. Rusty pawed at the toy box, whining. I lifted the lid, and there it was, the envelope, tucked under his old tennis ball. Safe. My breath left me in a rush. He must have nudged it there while I was packing last night. Or maybe I'd hidden it without remembering, paranoid. Either way, it wasn't gone. I drove straight to Martin's office, Rusty riding shotgun, fogging the window with his breath. I placed the envelope on the lawyer's desk, like a winning hand of cards. Martin flipped through it, nodded once, and locked it into his cabinet. "You did right," he said. "Now even if someone pressures you, copies exist outside this house. They can't erase you." For the first time all day, my lungs felt like they could fill again. Rusty pressed his muzzle against my palm, tail thumping. Still, that night I couldn't shake the image of Evan's smirk through the car window. The way the man in the hoodie had lingered outside the UPS store. They were watching, waiting for me to stumble. I sat with Rusty on the porch, December air cutting sharp, the spruce swaying heavy with rain. "Almost lost it, boy," I whispered, rubbing his ears. But not yet. Not ever. Rusty leaned against me, his weight solid, steady. And I thought, as long as he breathed beside me, they couldn't take everything. The crisis came on a Thursday afternoon, rain slanting against the windows like nails. I was sorting through my notebook, checking Martin's notes, when the phone rang. A stern voice on the other end introduced himself as Legal Department from Chase. He asked me to confirm my social security number to re-verify access. I froze. Something in the tone, too urgent, too pushy, set my teeth on edge. "I'll call the branch myself," I said, and hung up. Not 30 minutes later, Evan stormed through the door. "Why didn't you confirm with the bank?" His face was flushed, his voice too loud. I stared at him. "Because that wasn't the bank." He sneered. "You're paranoid. You're going to mess everything up for yourself." Rusty growled, low and steady, from the corner. Evan kicked at his food bowl on the floor, scattering kibble across the tiles. Rusty barked once, ears pinned back. I stood, hands shaking but voice level. "You don't get to speak for me. Not to the bank, not to anyone." Evan's eyes narrowed. "We'll see." He grabbed his jacket and left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the star pinned to the fridge. That night, I couldn't shake the fear he'd already twisted something behind my back. I drove to the bank in person the next morning, Rusty's head hanging out the window, ears flapping in the cold. The branch manager, a woman in a gray suit with tired eyes, pulled me into her office. "Mr. Whitman, someone tried to submit a power of attorney on your behalf yesterday. It didn't match, so we flagged it." She slid a copy across the desk. Evan's handwriting, sloppy, trying to imitate mine. My chest burned, but I forced myself to breathe slow. "Is my account safe?" She nodded. "For now, but you should consider a safety deposit box for any originals." By the afternoon I had one, small, metallic, inside a vault that smelled of cold steel and dust. I slipped the USB inside, along with Mary's recipe binder, the chase logs, and my notebook. The sound of the lock clicking shut felt like a second heartbeat. When I walked out, Rusty wagged his tail like he understood. At home that evening, Tara was waiting. "You disappeared again. Evan's worried you're confused." I smiled for the first time in days. Confused enough to open a vault? Number, not confused, prepared. She stiffened, eyes darting. "What did you do?" I didn't answer. I scratched Rusty's ears, sat back in my chair, and let silence hang between us until she turned away. In my notebook that night, I wrote just one line. "The table is set. Next time, it's my turn to serve." Rusty shifted against my foot, warm and alive, and I knew the storm was coming, but I finally had shelter strong enough to withstand it. Christmas Eve. The house looked like a showroom instead of a home. Tara's new artificial tree stood in the corner, 9 feet tall, pre-lit, branches too perfect to be real. Not a single pine smell in the air, only the sharp sweetness of vanilla candles she'd scattered in every room. The dining table stretched long, 12 seats arranged with polished forks and glitter napkin rings. I noticed immediately. No plate for me. Not even a chair pushed aside. Just a gap. Deliberate. Voices buzzed from the living room. Laughter. The squeak of kids' sneakers on hardwood. The clink of glasses. Tara's laugh, high and sharp, cutting through everything. I pushed the door open. Rusty padded in at my side, nails clicking, tail still but steady. Conversation snapped shut, like a switch flipped. Cousins looked away. Someone muttered, "I thought he wasn't invited." Evan turned from the fireplace, glass in hand, his face freezing mid-smile. "Dad, you weren't supposed to—" "I live here," I said flat. My voice wasn't raised, but it cut cleaner than shouting. Tara set her wine glass down too hard, the stem ringing. "This is a family dinner." We talked about this. I moved to the table, placed a slim folder on the runner beside the centerpiece. Paper against polished wood made a sound louder than it should have. "Exactly. Family. And tonight the family deserves to hear the truth." Rusty sat, head high, eyes cloudy but unblinking. He looked like a guard, not a pet. Evan chuckled, forced. "Dad, come on. Not now? You're embarrassing yourself." "No," I said, sliding the first page free. The room hushed, only the refrigerator humming from the kitchen. "These are Chase account logs. They show someone accessing my account from an iPhone. I don't own an iPhone, but Evan does." I held the paper up so the chandelier light caught the ink. Neighbors leaned in. Whispers rippled. Evan's laugh cracked. "Banks screw up all the time. Glitches. It doesn't prove anything." But already eyes were shifting. Tara's sister whispered behind her napkin. Tom, the neighbor, folded his arms, staring at Evan hard. Rusty's tail thumped once against the floor, echoing through the silence. And in that moment, I knew the first brick was laid. The wall was starting to close in. I let the first paper rest on the table, the printed lines catching candlelight like steel. Nobody reached for their fork. Even the kids had gone silent, sensing something adults pretended wasn't happening. I pulled the second document from the folder, a crumpled receipt, taped neatly to a sheet of paper. "This," I said, "was found in Mary's old recipe binder. A Craigslist pickup. $40. I paused, letting the words hang. That's what they listed the spruce for. The tree we planted 30 years ago. The tree Mary decorated every Christmas until the day she died. Gasps cracked through the silence. Tara's sister covered her mouth. One of the cousins whispered, $40? Like it was dirt money. Evan shot forward in his chair. That's ridiculous. It's just a tree. Dad, you're making everyone uncomfortable. I slammed the paper down so hard the candles flickered. Rusty barked once, sharp, his tail stiff like a rod. Not just a tree, I said, my voice steady, louder now. A living piece of this family. And you threw it on Craigslist like a broken lamp. Tom, the neighbor, leaned toward the table. I saw that listing, he muttered. His voice carried, and suddenly the air in the room shifted. Evan's face flushed. It was Tara's idea, he snapped, turning toward her. But Tara raised her hands fast. Don't you dare put this on me. You said we needed space. You said the dog and the tree both had to go. Whispers broke out again, sharper now, cutting through the room. Eyes pinned Evan from every angle. His jaw flexed, his hand tightening around his glass until it creaked. Rusty growled, low, steady. His body pressed against my leg like an anchor. I slid the receipt forward, right between the centerpiece candles. First the bank, then the tree. What else, Evan? My house, my name. The silence after that wasn't empty. It was heavy, crowded, ready to break. And I wasn't done yet. I could feel the room teetering, like everyone was holding their breath. The chase logs and the Craigslist receipt lay side by side on the table, ugly scars on polished wood. I let the silence sit, stretch long enough for everyone to taste it. Then I reached into my coat pocket. My fingers brushed the cold plastic of the USB drive. Rusty shifted against my leg, sensing the change in my pulse. At this next piece, I said slowly, isn't paper. It's a voice every one of you will recognize. Evan's head snapped up. Don't do this, Dad. Tara leaned forward, eyes narrowing. What are you talking about? I slid the small recorder onto the table. The red light blinked once as I pressed play. From the tiny speaker, Evan's voice filled the dining room. He needs to just sign Tara. It's paperwork. The bank's ready. Golden Oaks has a room. Whispers erupted. Chairs creaked as people shifted. Evan shot to his feet, face pale. That's out of context. He spliced it. He doesn't even know how to use. But the tape wasn't finished. And the dog, gone, smells up the place. We'll tell him it's policy. Rusty barked so loud the candles trembled. Gasps rippled around the table. A cousin muttered, "Oh my God," Tara's sister whispered. "Did you hear that?" He said, "The dog dash dash." Evan lunged forward, snatching the recorder. He fumbled with the buttons, face red, hands shaking. "This is fake! He's paranoid. He's losing it." But the words still hung in the air, undeniable. His voice, his tone, his plan. I leaned back, let him stew in it. My own voice came calm, measured. "Fake or not, every person here just heard you talk about putting me away. About throwing out the last thing that matters to me. About erasing me." Tara pulled her hands back from Evan like he'd burned her. "You told me your father wanted this. That he agreed to the tour. Evan stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. Tom, the neighbor, spoke up from his chair at the far end of the table. "I've lived downstairs 15 years. I've heard that man." He pointed at me. "Every morning walking Rusty at 6 a.m., rain or shine. He remembers my birthday better than my own kids. And you're telling us he's confused? Losing it? Doesn't look that way to me." The room hummed with agreement. Eyes sharpened. Whispers built. Evan's mouth opened and closed, no words landing. Rusty thumped his tail once, twice. My hand rested on his back, steadying both of us. "This is only the third brick," I said, my gaze fixed on Evan. "And you're already cracking." The chandelier lights glinted on his glass, still in his hand, trembling so hard the liquid inside rippled like a storm. And everyone saw it. The room was already leaning away from Evan when the doorbell rang. Not a timid ring, two firm presses like someone who knew they had a right to be here. Heads turned, Rusty's ears lifted. I didn't move. Tom stood up first. "I'll get it." He disappeared down the hall and came back with two men in work jackets pushing a dolly. On it, wrapped in burlap and wet soil, the root ball heavy as an anchor, stood a living spruce taller than anyone in the room. Water beaded along its needles, the sap's clean sweetness cutting through the vanilla candles like a blade. The artificial tree in the corner suddenly looked like a prop from a cheap stage set. Tara took a step back. "What is this?" "Delivery," the shorter man said, reading from his clipboard. "One live spruce, paid in full. Instructions were to bring it into the dining room, set it where the owner points." "The owner will point," I said. Rusty rose to his feet, tail high, body vibrating with a sound I hadn't heard from him in months. A quiet, surprised whine that turned into a low, happy rumble. He knew the smell. His paws danced in place. Evan's face drained. "No, absolutely not. Get that out." The taller mover tilted his head. "Paperwork says Mr. John Whitman. That you?" His eyes flicked to mine. I nodded. He grinned. "Then this tree stays." They rolled the dolly forward. Wet soil left dark kisses on the hardwood. The plastic lights on Tora's store tree hummed louder, as if protesting. The live spruce's shadow climbed the wall and swallowed half the room. I reached into my folder and set down a stack of papers, copies with blue stamps, straight edges that made a sound like a card deck when I tapped them square. Craigslist chat log, payment receipt, delivery authorization, and this. I slid a folded map out, unfolded it slow enough for everyone to absorb the lines. "Is the parcel survey recorded at the county 2 weeks after we planted the spruce. The back strip of land, 20 by 50 feet, was deeded solely to me. Recorded, notarized, sealed." A collective intake of breath pulled the air tight. The chandelier's crystals trembled. Tara laughed, thin and brittle. "You're waving papers around. No one cares about your—" Tom cut in. "I've stood in line at Multnomah County Recorder. That stamp's real." He tapped the blue seal with a blunt finger. "That's the seal." Evan slammed his palm on the table. The cutlery jumped. "You can't just split the property." "That's not how—" "It's exactly how Mary and I did it," I said, and my voice surprised even me with how even it was. "When we planted the spruce, we filed a separate deed for the back strip. Not because we didn't trust anyone, because we wanted to protect the only living thing that carried both our names." I turned to the movers. "Here." They set the root ball gently onto the stand I'd bolted together the night before in the garage, the one I'd hidden under a tarp. The spruce rocked once, then settled, needles catching the light in tiny mirrors. Sap glistened along a scar on the trunk. the one Emily carved around when she was little to hang her paper stars. I reached to the fridge, slipped the paper star free from the Trailblazers magnet, and held it up. The glitter had dulled, but the glue held. I hooked it onto a low branch because I wasn't climbing tonight. Rusty pressed his muzzle into the needles and sneezed, then wagged like a pup. "You stole that tree," Evan said, voice shaking. "You went behind our backs." "I bought back what you sold for $40, I said, and slid the printed chat forward. Evan's own username stared up at him. His spelling errors, the pickup time, the photo of a man in his jacket next to a truck bed, our spruce lying on its side like a wounded animal. Tara's face went flat. "You said a landscaping company took it. You said it was dead." "Dead?" Tom barked out a laugh he didn't bother to hide. "Looks pretty alive to me." Phones appeared around the room, cousins pretending to be subtle as they lifted cameras. One of the teenagers whispered, "Is this going on Channel 7? And someone shushed him. The cinnamon plug-in sputtered, overwhelmed by the clean cut of sap in the air. I laid down one more paper, thin, official, the ink still crisp from the printer. Affidavit of capacity. Signed yesterday, witnessed, notarized, filed. If anyone here tries to speak for me again, they'll be speaking to a judge first. Tara's sister leaned in to read. "That means what?" "It means," I said, letting each word land, "no one makes decisions for me without my consent. No tours, no accounts, no signatures, not now, not ever." Evan's lips peeled back from his teeth. "You think a few papers and a tree make you king? You're old, you forget things. Everyone knows it." He turned to the room, appealing to their impatience. "He leaves the stove on. He gets lost in Safeway. He dash. "Enough!" Tom snapped, and his voice carried the weight of the hallway outside, the stairs, the people who heard things through vents and pretended not to. "We all saw him in the HOA room, every month, paying his dues in cash because he likes paper. We all saw him out there in the rain, walking that dog when you were still sleeping in. Don't stand there and call this man confused." Silence, not empty, packed. I could feel the line stretched taut between us, between the real tree and the plastic one, between sap and candle, between paper that binds and paper that lies. I set down 2 small rectangles was last, bank safe deposit receipts, cold as coins. "There are duplicates of everything off-site. You can smash my recorder. You can throw away my notebooks. It won't change what's locked behind steel." Rusty's tail thumped. Once, twice. Evan looked around for backup and found eyes sliding off him like water. Even Tara stepped away, arms folded tight, the bouquet of fake berries on the table scratching her wrist as she moved. "You wanted me to have no seat at this table," I said, and looked at the empty space where a plate should have been. "Tonight I brought the table to me." No one laughed, no one moved. Outside, rain struck the windows harder, like knuckles insisting on the truth. The live spruce's shadow swallowed the plastic branches in the corner, and for the first time all evening, I smelled Christmas, the kind that didn't need a label. Evan opened his mouth, closed it. His hand trembled around the glass until it slipped and shattered against the floor. The sound snapped through the room like a verdict. I didn't flinch. I just reached down and scratched Rusty's neck, felt his warm, steady life under my hand, and waited for the last thing I had to say to land where it needed to. We weren't finished. Not yet. The shards of Evan's glass glittered on the floor. No one bent to help him. Tara kept her arms crossed tight, her eyes fixed on the spruce, not on her husband. "Dad," Evan said finally, voice cracked, "you can't do this. You can't humiliate me in front of everyone." I leaned forward. "You did that yourself." The cousin at the end of the table whispered, "He's finished," and the words carried, unhidden. I pulled one last page from the folder. A simple letter from Martin, the lawyer, confirming the affidavit filed with the court, stamped, dated, sealed. I placed it gently on top of the pile. "This," I said, "is the nail in the coffin. Every signature you tried to fake, every account you tried to touch, void. You buried me with papers. Tonight, papers bury you." The room erupted in whispers. Phones were out again, screens glowing. Evan's face sagged, all color gone. He looked around for allies and found none. Rusty barked once, sharp and final, the kind of bark that ends an argument. I stood, voice low, but cutting through the noise. "You told me Christmas dinner was for family only. You made sure I had no seat at this table. Tonight, you lost yours." Silence, heavy, undeniable. Evan's hands opened and closed at his sides, but no words came. Tara turned her face away. Tom shook his head slowly, like the verdict had been written long before this night. I reached down, lifted the old paper star from my coat pocket, and hooked it onto the spruce's highest branch I could reach. Glitter caught the chandelier's light, faint but steady. "This house remembers who planted it," I said, "and so do I." The room didn't clap, didn't cheer, but I didn't need it. The truth was planted, rooted deeper than their lies, and for the first time in years, I felt the ground under me hold firm. Rusty leaned against my leg, warm and alive. The only sound was the quiet thump of his tail, like punctuation on a story finally finished. When the last voices faded and the door slammed behind Evan, the house finally exhaled. The artificial tree in the corner stood dark, a dead ornament. The spruce, our spruce, filled the room with sap and rain, needles shimmering under the porch light like it had waited all these years to come back home. Rusty circled once at my feet, then dropped with a heavy sigh, his head on my boot. His body was warm and steady, like an anchor tying me to the ground. I bent and scratched his ears. "We made it, boy. We're still here." On the table lay the papers, stacked neat. Bank logs, the affidavit, the deed to the strip of land Mary and I had claimed decades ago. Proof that I wasn't crazy. Proof that roots go deeper than greed. I slid them into the envelope, pressed it flat, then tucked it away. They weren't my shield anymore. They were my closure. I walked out to the porch. The air bit sharp, and my breath rose white in the dark. The spruce swayed gently, its shadow taller than the house itself. I reached into my coat and pulled out the paper star. The glitter had dulled, the cardboard bent, but it was still whole, like me. I hooked it onto a low branch. The porch light caught it, made it glow faint but stubborn. Rusty barked once, then thumped his tail against the wood. "This house is ours," I said, voice low but certain. "This tree is ours, and no one takes that away." I stood there a long while, breathing in the clean scent of sap, listening to Rusty's steady panting beside me. For the first time in years, I felt like Christmas had come back. And if you're hearing my story, if you felt even once what it's like to be pushed aside by your own blood, don't stay silent. Leave your name, leave your city. Tell me where you're standing tall. I'll read it, everyone. Because none of us should ever feel invisible. Rusty leaned against my leg, his weight certain, his tail thumping slow and steady. That was all the applause I needed. The moral was written in the roots under my feet. They tried to bury me with paper, but paper saved me, and roots, real ones, don't sign themselves away.